Hi and welcome to Guitar Ergonomics. Today is a slightly different video to what I normally do on my YouTube channel because today is about exercise and why it makes sense to exercise when you are a musician and a guitarist. As usual, for more information about my work, you can either go to pasguitar.co.uk or paulsøgaard.com. Now, before I tell you a little bit about the kind of exercises that I do, please be aware of what's on this screen here. So I'm just going to draw your attention to this, that this is not an instructional video. It's not me telling you how to do exercise and what kind of exercises to do. And of course, before you do any kind of exercises, please make sure that you have got the right medical advice and that you are getting the right instructions from a professional instructor and so on. So that's really, really important. So please be aware of this for this video here. This video is not an instruction in how to do certain exercises, but I'm just telling you what kind of exercises that I do. And the reason for this is that a lot of the time when I have people who are my clients and coming to study with me, we always talk about exercise at some point, and that question always come up, Paul, what kind of exercises do you do and so on to stay fit? So I thought it would be a good idea actually to talk a little bit about the kind of exercises that I do. So you can see over here, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I exercise. I'm going to talk about stretching, walking, swimming, weightlifting, the Alexander technique, and then a very brief summary. So why do I exercise? Well, firstly, I think it's really important to maintain good physical and mental health and to stay fit. So that's the basic reason for why I exercise. But also to get a very strong body, which can support me in my daily tasks and activities, and of course, in terms of guitar practice and playing. I do it also because it's a really great way of setting myself new goals and challenges. And then most importantly, I do it because actually I think it's really fun. I really love exercising and it's a really important part of my day-to-day work. So talking a little bit about playing the guitar and exercising. If you're playing the guitar, particularly if you play electric guitar and if you are gigging and that sort of stuff, it's actually really important that you're exercising, that you're fit. Guitars can be quite heavy to carry, particularly if it's electric guitar. In a case or just standing with it, with a strap, but also if you are using, amps, they are heavy to carry. So the more fit you are, the more easy this is going to be for you. And if you work, in a band, you might help with carrying other stuff that can be quite heavy. So it's really important to be fit. But overall, for your physical and mental health, exercise is really, really important. And there's a lot of research on that you can dig into. If you want to know more about that, we'll explain to you why this is really, really important. I also love to set myself new goals and challenges. And as I go through this presentation, I'm going to talk to you about that. Stretching. Stretching is very, very important. It strengthens and lengthens my muscles. It's a really good way of releasing tension and stress. And it's a great preparation and warm up for practice and playing the guitar. So when I mean stretching, what I'm really interested in is particularly the upper body, because obviously as a guitarist we are using our hands and our arms and our upper body. So stretching before playing and before practicing is for me absolutely essential. It warms up my body and it makes it much, much easier for me actually to play the guitar. I also use it between sessions, and those of you who have had sessions with me will know that my practice sessions are very short, sometimes down just to a few minutes, and then getting away from the guitar, putting it down and doing some stretches is a really useful way of keeping myself fit and focused. So I use it as a warm-up, but also after a practice session or playing session, it's a really good way to cool down. And there are of course loads of stretching exercises that you can do and make variation on those. I have at least 50 that I use, but I try to make as many variations as possible of these to make it more fun and interesting, and so that my body and muscles, they do not get used to the same exercises all the time. So this is something which I think is it's really a core of my fitness to do stretching. And you can do them anywhere, which I think is the great thing about it. You don't have to be in a fitness center or be lying on a mat, you can actually do stretches almost everywhere you are, which makes them so useful. So this for me is a really important part of my overall fitness regime, stretching. Walking. I love walking, and I'm very fortunate that I live in a place where we have fields and we have hills and forest where I can go for long walks. When I'm walking, it's a fantastic way of actually doing creative thinking. So thinking about my guitar playing. Because when you are walking, you are sort of releasing yourself from where you are, if you've been indoor and so on. And just that activity of walking, regardless of where it is really good for my creative thinking. I can think about my guitar playing, I can think about developing improvisations and coming up with new ideas. I also just love to be in nature and breathe fresh air, which of course is really important. If I've got a problem that I'm thinking through, I prefer to do that while I'm walking. It's much better for me to be in movement and then think about solving problems than sitting still. And actually quite interesting, the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said, there is no problem that isn't so heavy or serious that you cannot walk it away. And there is something about that walking makes you think more positively about your daily life and so on. The other thing that I love to do when I'm out walking is finding a very quiet place where I then sit and meditate in silence when there's nobody around me. And that's also a really good exercise actually, just for concentrating and focusing your mind. So I think walking has many benefits besides the physical aspect. Obviously it's good for the heart, but more importantly actually to give you that opportunity to think away from your normal setting. About your guitar playing, improvising and composing, of course, is another thing that you can do while you're walking. So that's really, really good. And if you look at my video on the visualization exercises and practice exercises, these are really good to do when you are walking. Swimming. Swimming was probably one of the first exercises that I ever did, right back as a very young child. I just absolutely love being in water. I feel very much at home in water. I love the idea that I can exercise my whole body. It's really good for breathing techniques, obviously. And again, when I am swimming, it actually becomes a meditation. So I don't count lanes, and things like that. How many lanes have I been swimming today? Not at all. I use a couple of different techniques here. One of them is called total immersion technique, which is a specific way of swimming, which I have found very, very useful. It's particularly good if you are swimming in the sea. That becomes a very supportive way of being in water when you're swimming in the sea. And that's something that you may want to check out with an instructor, obviously, to help you to do that properly. I also like to be underwater, and anything that I can do underwater and that helps my breathing, I find really beneficial. But again, you need to do that obviously in a safe manner and preferably with a swim buddy. Have someone with you. The other thing I use is something called the side stroke, which is a great way of swimming, because actually when you are swimming, particularly with somebody else, you can see that person all the time. So it's not only a great way of swimming, a really good cardiovascular exercise, but it's also a great way of keeping an eye on your swim buddy, so you can look after each other while you're swimming. But I can't speak highly enough of swimming and how much I enjoy that. Whether it's in a pool or whether it is in the sea, I think it's just a wonderful way of exercising. Weightlifting is really important to me. First of all, just to get a stronger body. I also use it as a way of setting goals that I can measure. So a good session, weight session, for me is doing 1,000 repetitions, which takes me about an hour in the gym. And again, why 1,000 repetitions? Well, I started basically with the idea of just doing 100 repetitions and see whether I could do that. And then it builds from there. And the number 1,000 has just become a measure for me that I feel really happy about when I've done 1,000 repetitions in the gym. And I feel that I worked my whole body in a really nice way when I've done 1,000 repetitions. I don't really go beyond that, and sometimes depending on how much energy I have, I might do less. So I might only do 600 repetitions and then do something else. in the gym, but 1,000 repetition really works out really well for me. In terms of upper body strength, it has been such a game changer for me to do weightlifting. So it's much easier for me now to hold the guitar and balance the guitar because I have a much stronger upper body than I had before. And for those of you who've been studying with me, you know I use a very specific technique in terms of holding and balancing the guitar. For example, particularly when playing classical guitar, where I really don't use the power in my hands in terms of grabbing the instrument. But what I do is I use the stronger muscles that are in the arms and the shoulders and the lower back. And weightlifting is a great way of developing these over time. So the Alexander technique is something that those of you who are studying with me, and if you've been on my website, know that it's a lot of the basis of how I have developed my guitar technique over time. And I use the Alexander's technique in all activities that I do. It's very much about thinking in activity, but with conscious guidance. So be really aware of what you're doing and how you're doing things. And everyone who has had proper instructions in a gym, for example, will know how important that is. And the basic relationship is that between my head, the neck, and the rest of the body. And to make sure that this is in proper alignment all the time. Exactly the same thing when I'm playing the guitar. I also make sure that the Alexander support me so that I avoid injury when doing any kind of exercise. And what it actually gives me is maximum efficiency, but with minimum effort. And again, if you've been studying with me, you know that this is one of my core principles in developing your guitar playing, and it is also that when I am exercising. So the more I can get out of my exercise by doing less, the better it is. So I'm really aware of how I am using my body and where my head, neck, and the rest of the body is, so to speak, in relation to each other when I am doing exercise. And you can just take one example, for example, swimming. Here it's really important, of course, that your head is in the water and that your eyes are facing the bottom, for example, of the pool, so that you get a really straight line from the top of your head right down to your feet, because it's going to make you glide through the water much better with less resistance. And that links really well to the Alexander technique, for example. So I hope that you found this video useful, and please remember that you must never just copy someone else's fitness regime or fitness program, but always seek medical advice as well as professional instructions and guidance before you exercise. You're more than welcome to contact me and hear more about my exercise program that I use to support myself as a guitarist and a musician. And for those of you who decide to have session with me, this will certainly be something that we will look at during those sessions, and I will share with you my routines and the knowledge that it has given me in terms of how it benefits me from a physical and psychological point of view, but of course also as a musician, as a guitarist. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now. And don't forget to stay fit and stay happy.